There are sides of an INFJ the world almost never sees. Not because they're hidden, but because they only surface when life pushes them past their limits. Under extreme pressure, the calm intuition, quiet empathy, and controlled energy that usually define them transform into something sharper, deeper, and far more powerful. These moments don't just reveal who the INFJ is, they reveal what they're truly capable of when their inner world is tested. Most people assume INFJs will break under intense emotional strain, but the truth is far more complex. Pressure activates a part of them that is both strategic and intensely perceptive. Their insight deepens, their emotional clarity sharpens, and their boundaries become immovable. They stop absorbing the weight of the world and begin channeling it into direction, precision, and decisive action. What looks like silence on the outside is often a psychological recalibration happening underneath. A shift that changes everything. If you're ready to explore the hidden strengths, survival instincts, and rare behaviors INFJs unleash only when pushed to the edge, stay with me. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to Brainy Quiet Mind so you never miss the deeper layers of INFJ psychology. Before we dive in, drop hidden depth in the comments. Let me know you're ready to uncover what most people will never notice. Their intuition becomes razor sharp, detecting truth with absolute accuracy. When an INFJ is pushed into extreme pressure, something inside them intensifies in a way most people never witness. Their intuition, normally a quiet compass in the background, sharpens into something closer to a psychological spotlight. Every inconsistency, every shift in tone, every unspoken intention becomes unmistakably clear. It's not guessing, not imagining, not hoping they're wrong. It's a visceral knowing that cuts through pretense and reveals what's really happening beneath the surface. In this state, the INFJ no longer doubts themselves or softens their perceptions to protect others. They see people, situations, and dynamics with a clarity that feels almost surgical, and that clarity leads every decision they make. As this razor-sharp intuition takes over, the INFJ's internal world becomes hyper-focused. They stop being influenced by emotional noise, manipulation, or social pressure because the truth is now louder than everything around them. Their insight moves faster than the situation unfolding. They detect motives before actions, shifts before words, endings before anyone else senses the beginning. It's the moment when their intuition stops whispering and begins speaking in undeniable certainty. People around them may feel unsettled by how accurately the INFJ reads the environment, predicting reactions or exposing dishonesty without effort. This isn't intimidation, it's the INFJ stepping into a level of perceptiveness they usually keep restrained. As the pressure continues, this heightened intuition becomes their natural armor. It guides them toward what is safe and away from what is not. It warns them when someone's intentions are off, when a situation is deteriorating, when a relationship is no longer aligned. They move with calculated grace, choosing silence over chaos, distance over confusion, truth over comfort. Extreme pressure doesn't weaken them, it refines them. This razor-edge clarity becomes the force that protects their spirit, shapes their next steps, and reveals a strength people rarely imagine they possess. When the INFJ reaches this state, they are no longer guessing the truth. They are recognizing it, with accuracy that leaves no room for doubt. They switch from empathy to analysis, observing everything with clinical precision. Under extreme pressure, the INFJ's emotional lens undergoes a dramatic shift, one that most people never expect. The empathy that usually guides their interactions recedes, not out of coldness, but out of necessity. In its place rises a sharp, analytical focus that turns their perception into something almost scientific. They stop absorbing feelings and start dissecting them. They stop softening truths and begin evaluating them with exacting clarity. Every behavior, every tone change, every contradiction becomes data. And in this state, the INFJ reads the situation not with their heart, but with a mind operating at full precision. The warmth doesn't disappear. It simply steps aside so survival, clarity, and accuracy can take command. As this analytical mode deepens, their attention becomes sharper, more controlled, and shockingly objective. They track patterns that others overlook. They recognize emotional manipulation not as a wound, but as a strategy. They notice contradictions not as confusion, but as evidence. They evaluate people's intentions with a kind of psychological distance that protects them from harm. The INFJ, who once tried to help everyone, now stands still and watches without stepping in. They identify what's real, what's distorted, what's aligned, and what's dangerous. It's the same intuition they've always had. But now filtered through logic, structure, and silent scrutiny, people who once relied on emotional influence suddenly find themselves powerless because the INFJ's empathy, the doorway they once used, is no longer open. Once this clinical clarity settles in, the INFJ becomes almost untouchable. Their choices become strategic rather than emotional. Their responses become measured rather than reactive. Their presence shifts from comforting to intimidating because nothing slips past them anymore. Not tone, not intention, not subtle attempts to regain control. They don't expose what they see. They simply adjust. They withdraw energy from manipulators, distance themselves from unstable dynamics, and walk forward with a level of intelligence that feels almost surgical. In this analytical mode, the INFJ is not cold. They are precise. And under extreme pressure, this precision becomes their greatest shield, allowing them to navigate chaos with a calm, calculating strength that very few ever realize they possess. Their emotional walls rise instantly, protecting them from further harm. When an INFJ reaches a level of pressure where their emotional safety is threatened, something inside them shifts with sudden, decisive force. The openness they normally offer, the empathy, the vulnerability, the readiness to understand, shuts down in an instant. It's not gradual, it's not dramatic. It's an instinctive lock of the inner world, a closing of doors that were once held open for the sake of connection. These emotional walls aren't built out of bitterness, they're built out of self-preservation. In this state, the INFJ no longer allows anyone access to their feelings, fears, or hopes. They withdraw into a quiet, fortified space where no manipulation, guilt, or emotional pressure can reach them. What once flowed outward freely now becomes guarded and selective. As those walls rise, their behavior shifts in ways that can be subtle yet unmistakably final. They stop sharing personal details. Their voice becomes steady, controlled, stripped of emotional cues that others use to navigate. They respond with logic instead of feeling. They no longer correct misunderstandings or defend their intentions because they know it no longer matters. The INFJ becomes emotionally opaque, neither reactive nor vulnerable. People who once relied on their softness suddenly sense an invisible distance, a wall they cannot climb or persuade their way through. This is the INFJ's emotional self-rescue, the moment they stop allowing their heart to be a battlefield for someone else's chaos. Behind these walls, something powerful happens. The INFJ regains clarity. Without emotional noise clouding their instincts, they begin seeing the situation with striking sharpness. They evaluate what went wrong, what patterns led here, and what must be done next. They choose themselves quietly, deliberately. The walls that rose in a moment become the boundary that protects their spirit long enough for them to recover, rebuild, and reorient. And once they have gathered their strength, they decide, with calm certainty, who will stay outside those walls permanently. Under extreme pressure, these emotional barriers aren't signs of weakness. They are signs of awakening. The INFJ choosing survival, clarity, and self-respect over further harm. They express boundaries with a firmness that surprises everyone around them. When an INFJ is pushed to their limit, the softness people are used to suddenly transforms into something steady, unwavering, and unmistakably strong. For years, they may have tolerated minor disrespect, emotional imbalance, or repeated misunderstandings just to keep the peace. They gave gentle warnings, subtle hints, or silent signals, hoping the other person would recognize the limit before it was crossed. But under extreme pressure, that quiet patience disappears. What rises in its place is a clarity so firm, so direct, that it catches everyone off guard. The INFJ stops negotiating their worth and starts enforcing it without hesitation or apology. As this firmness takes root, their communication changes. They no longer justify their decisions or cushion their refusals. Their words become clean, minimal, and unmistakably final. No becomes a complete sentence. I won't do that becomes a boundary, not a starting point for discussion. And when someone tries to push, guilt trip, or manipulate, the INFJ doesn't bend. They simply restate the boundary with the same calm certainty. There's no anger, no emotional outburst, no dramatic confrontation. Just a steady strength that cannot be moved. It's this calmness, combined with unwavering resolve, that unsettles people the most. The INFJ who once compromised now stands immovable. Behind this firmness lies something deeper, self-respect reclaimed under pressure. Their boundaries are not acts of rebellion, but acts of healing. They protect their energy, their peace, and their emotional clarity with a precision they once reserved for protecting others. People who counted on their flexibility feel the shift instantly. The INFJ will no longer stretch themselves thin for the sake of someone else's comfort. Extreme pressure reveals that their kindness has always had a backbone. It simply wasn't visible until now. And once the INFJ stands in this firmness, there is no returning to the version of themselves that allowed their own well-being to be negotiable. Their calm transforms into strategic silence that unsettles others. When an INFJ faces extreme pressure, their usual soft-spoken calm evolves into something far more deliberate, a silence that carries weight, intention, and unsettling clarity. This is not the silence of retreat or fear. It is the silence of calculation. The INFJ withdraws from emotional noise the way a strategist steps back from a battlefield to survey every angle. They stop responding immediately, they stop reassuring others, they stop filling empty spaces with comfort. Their silence becomes a psychological boundary, a moment of stillness where their intuition gathers information with uncanny precision, and people around them feel it. The shift from gentle quiet to powerful quiet, long before the INFJ says a word. As this strategic silence deepens, the INFJ becomes unreadable. Others cannot tell what they're thinking, what they're planning, or what they've already understood. The INFJ doesn't reveal confusion or hurt or anger. Instead, they watch, they listen, they analyze. Their silence exposes the tension, insecurities, and inconsistencies in everyone else. People who depended on emotional reaction find themselves disarmed because the INFJ's lack of response removes all leverage. Manipulators feel exposed. Confident personalities become unsure. Even well-intentioned people start adjusting their words carefully, sensing that the INFJ is absorbing every detail. Silence becomes the INFJ's strongest language, one that reveals truth more effectively than confrontation ever could. When they finally speak, it's with clarity sharpened by this silence. Their words land with precision because they were chosen slowly, intentionally, and only after every emotional distraction fell away. The INFJ speaks less, but what they say carries weight, exposing dynamics, drawing boundaries, or ending a situation with calm authority. Extreme pressure activates a version of them that doesn't waste energy convincing or defending. Instead, their silence becomes both shield and mirror, protecting their inner world while reflecting back the reality of everyone around them. This is the moment people realize the INFJ was never quiet because they were weak. They were quiet because their silence was the most powerful move on the board. They stop absorbing emotions and begin reflecting them back. Under extreme pressure, the INFJ undergoes a shift that is both subtle and powerful. They stop functioning as an emotional sponge. For most of their life, they have absorbed the moods, anxieties, frustrations, and unspoken wounds of the people around them. But when the emotional load becomes too heavy or someone repeatedly takes advantage of their empathy, a quiet transformation occurs. The INFJ stops taking in the energy directed at them and instead mirrors it back with calm, unsettling accuracy. They no longer internalize tension. They simply let others sit with the weight of their own emotions. And in that moment, the dynamics change completely. As this reflective state settles in, the INFJ's interactions take on a new tone. If someone is evasive, the INFJ becomes even quieter, mirroring the avoidance until the truth reveals itself. If someone is aggressive, the INFJ responds with controlled stillness, highlighting the other person's volatility. If someone tries to guilt trip or manipulate, the INFJ meets it with emotional neutrality, exposing the tactic by refusing to react. They're no longer cushioning blow after blow. They're allowing people to feel the full impact of their own behavior. This reflection is not revenge, it's revelation. It forces others to confront what the INFJ has endured in silence. And as this mirroring continues, something powerful happens. The INFJ's inner world becomes clearer and more protected. Without absorbing everyone else's emotional debris, they regain their strength, intuition, and sense of self. They make decisions based on truth rather than emotional distortion. People around them behave differently too. Some retreat, unable to handle their own reflection, while others become more respectful, realizing the INFJ will no longer carry their emotional weight for them. Under pressure, this reflective ability becomes a shield, a boundary, and a truth-telling force. It's the moment the INFJ stops drowning in others' emotions and stands firmly in their own clarity, allowing others to finally face themselves. Their decision making becomes swift, confident, and unshakable. Under extreme pressure, the INFJ undergoes one of their most dramatic internal shifts. Hesitation disappears. The careful weighing of everyone's feelings, the fear of disappointing someone, the tendency to overanalyze possible outcomes, all of it falls away. What rises in its place is a clarity forged by intuition and sharpened by necessity. Their mind stops circling possibilities and locks onto the one path that aligns with truth. Decisions that once took them days now take minutes. Choices that once required reassurance now flow from instinct. And because these decisions come from a place of deep inner certainty, nothing and no one can sway them from the direction they choose. As this decisive state takes over, people around the INFJ often feel stunned by the sudden change. The INFJ who once accommodated becomes the INFJ who acts. They end relationships that no longer serve them without wavering. They walk away from toxic environments with calm finality. They pivot their life direction with a confidence that feels almost abrupt to those who expected the usual softness. But this is not impulsivity, it is precision. Under pressure, their intuition synthesizes information at a speed others can't comprehend, revealing the clearest path forward. Emotions no longer cloud their judgment. Doubts no longer slow their momentum. Their decisions become grounded, practical, and aligned with their deepest values. And once this unshakable decision making emerges, the INFJ becomes nearly impossible to manipulate or redirect. They no longer seek permission, approval, or validation. They don't reopen closed doors or revisit choices their intuition has already confirmed. Instead, they move forward with a quiet power, resolute, steady, and self directed. This shift transforms their entire life. Relationships become healthier, boundaries stronger, opportunities clearer. Extreme pressure reveals that the INFJ's greatest strength isn't just their empathy or insight, but their ability to choose decisively when it matters most. Once they reach this state, their path becomes intentional, their voice firm, and their future entirely their own. They detach from toxic connections without hesitation or remorse. When an INFJ reaches extreme pressure, their tolerance for emotional imbalance or manipulation collapses instantly. The patience they once extended, the empathy they once offered, the explanations they once repeated, all of it disappears in a single moment of clarity. They no longer analyze the situation, question their instincts, or hope someone will change. Instead, they detach with a quiet certainty that shocks everyone who underestimated their strength. This detachment isn't dramatic or vengeful. It's clean, immediate, and absolute. The INFJ stops fighting for a connection that drains them and walks away without looking back, because they finally understand that their peace is worth more than someone else's chaos. As this detachment sets in, their behavior shifts in ways that feel unmistakably final. They stop responding to emotional bait, they stop offering explanations, they stop giving chances to people who have already shown their intentions. Their withdrawal is silent, but it carries the weight of truth, the realization that the relationship has become unsafe for their spirit. Toxic individuals feel this detachment sharply because their power relied on the INFJ's emotional involvement. But when the INFJ disconnects, the power dynamic collapses. There is no guilt to exploit, no empathy to manipulate, no vulnerability to drain. The INFJ becomes unreachable, protected by a clarity stronger than any emotional bond. Once this detachment is complete, something transformative happens. The INFJ experiences immediate emotional freedom. Their mind clears, their body relaxes, their intuition steadies. They no longer replay conversations, question their choices, or carry emotional residue that doesn't belong to them. They move forward with a sense of inner liberation, knowing they've chosen self-respect over attachment. Extreme pressure doesn't break the INFJ, it reveals their threshold, and once crossed, they detach in a way that leaves no ambiguity, no fragments, no possibility of return. It is one of the clearest signs that the INFJ has stepped into their final form of strength, the ability to walk away from anything that threatens their peace. They speak with rare bluntness, cutting through confusion with clarity. Under extreme pressure, the INFJ's normally gentle communication sharpens into something direct, precise, and unexpectedly powerful. The soft edges fall away, the hesitation disappears, and the need to cushion the truth evaporates. Instead of trying to protect someone's feelings or maintain harmony, they speak with a level of honesty that lands like a clean cut through fog. There is no anger in their voice, only clarity. They name the pattern, identify the motive, and articulate what others tiptoe around. Their words pierce through manipulation, denial, or confusion with startling accuracy. It's a form of truth speaking they reserve for moments when staying silent would cost them their peace. As this blunt clarity emerges, something shifts in the room. People who once depended on the INFJ's softness feel exposed because the INFJ is no longer translating or softening emotional information. They're delivering it directly. The INFJ points out inconsistencies others ignore. They call out harmful behavior without raising their voice. They describe exactly what is happening beneath the surface with a calmness that carries more weight than confrontation ever could. Their honesty is clean, not cruel, firm, not aggressive, but it hits with undeniable force because it is the truth they've been holding back for far too long. Those who underestimated them often feel shocked, even disarmed, by the sudden precision of their words. Once the INFJ enters this state, their communication becomes a tool of liberation. Speaking bluntly allows them to break patterns that have trapped them, clarify dynamics they no longer wish to tolerate, and release emotional weight they've carried silently. It's the moment their voice stops being filtered through fear or empathy and becomes aligned with their inner truth. And once they've spoken with this level of clarity, there is no going back to diluted expression. Extreme pressure reveals a version of the INFJ who does not whisper their truth. They state it, simply and unmistakably. Their bluntness becomes a turning point, cutting through illusions and freeing them to move forward with integrity and strength. Their resilience becomes visible. They endure what breaks others. When an INFJ is pushed into extreme pressure, their strength stops being quiet. It becomes unmistakable. This is when people finally see the depth of endurance that has always lived beneath their calm surface. While others crack, lash out, or collapse under emotional or psychological strain, the INFJ goes inward, not to escape, but to stabilize. They draw from a reservoir of insight, patience, and inner stillness that few people ever witness. Their resilience doesn't show up in dramatic displays of toughness. It shows up in their ability to stay clear-headed, grounded, and focused when everything around them feels unstable. In these moments, the INFJ becomes the one thing pressure cannot bend. As the intensity increases, their resilience takes on a shape that surprises everyone. They stop reacting emotionally and begin responding with strategy. They absorb the full complexity of the situation, process it with astonishing speed, and find meaning in the chaos instead of being consumed by it. Their endurance isn't passive, it's active, intelligent, and intentional. They don't simply survive pressure. They metabolize it, turning it into clarity, direction, and inner strength. Others may crumble because they fight the weight head on, but the INFJ allows the storm to pass through them without losing themselves in the process. Their calm becomes strength, their silence becomes stability, their insight becomes their anchor, and when the pressure finally breaks, something remarkable becomes visible. The INFJ is still standing, not hardened but sharpened. Their spirit remains intact, their empathy preserved, their intuition stronger than before. People who expected them to fall often don't understand how they endured, how someone so gentle could possess such unyielding inner force. But resilience is woven into the INFJ's core. It's built from years of navigating emotional complexity, understanding human behavior, and carrying burdens unseen by others. Extreme pressure doesn't destroy them, it reveals them. And what it reveals is a strength that is quiet, steady, and powerful enough to survive what would break almost anyone else. They rely entirely on self-trust, ignoring outside opinions. Under extreme pressure, the INFJ's relationship with their inner voice undergoes a profound transformation. The doubt that once made them second-guess their perceptions fades, replaced by an unwavering trust in their own insight. They stop seeking reassurance, stop checking their intuition against others' interpretations, and stop allowing external noise to influence their decisions. Instead, they turn inward, grounding themselves in the clarity their intuition has been giving them all along. This self-trust becomes the lens through which they see the situation, clean, uncompromised, and immune to outside persuasion. What once felt like just a feeling now becomes their compass. Steady, accurate, and undeniable. As this inner confidence strengthens, their behavior shifts in ways people around them can feel instantly. The INFJ no longer entertains conflicting advice or emotional pressure from others. They listen politely, but it no longer shapes their choices. They hear opinions without absorbing them. They see attempts to sway them without being moved. Their decisions begin to come from a place of internal alignment rather than collective expectation. And because they're no longer diluted by outside influence, their actions become sharper and more purposeful. This self-trust cuts through paralysis and opens a direct path forward, one defined by intuition, not approval. Once this internal shift solidifies, the INFJ becomes nearly unshakable. Others may question them, doubt them, or attempt to change their course, but it no longer matters. They've stopped asking for permission to follow their own knowing. They move with a quiet certainty that others can sense but rarely understand. Their inner world feels stronger, calmer, and more aligned than ever before. Extreme pressure reveals that the INFJ's greatest clarity comes not from external validation, but from the truth they hold within. When they rely entirely on self-trust, their decisions, boundaries, and direction become unstoppable, guided by intuition that no outside opinion can weaken. They rebuild themselves quickly, emerging stronger than before. When an INFJ reaches the point of emotional collapse or extreme pressure, it may look on the outside like they are breaking. Their silence deepens, their energy withdraws, and their inner world becomes a private landscape of reflection and recalibration. But this breaking is only the surface of a far deeper process. Inside, the INFJ is already sorting through the damage with remarkable speed and clarity. They examine what hurt them, what patterns must end, what truths must be faced, and what parts of themselves must be reclaimed. This internal reconstruction happens quietly, almost invisibly, but it is powerful. The INFJ is not falling apart. They are resetting, rewiring, and preparing to rise again. As this rebuilding accelerates, their inner strength begins to take form long before others realize it. They release emotional weight they were never meant to carry. They detach from identities or expectations that restricted their growth. They let go of relationships, habits, or environments that fed their exhaustion. In this phase, the INFJ's resilience becomes almost alchemical, turning pain into insight, confusion into clarity, loss into direction. Their intuition sharpens, their emotional boundaries tighten, and their sense of purpose resurfaces with new intensity. What once overwhelmed them becomes raw material for transformation. They begin stepping out of the emotional wreckage with a steadiness that feels almost supernatural, grounded in self-knowledge earned through fire. By the time the INFJ emerges fully, they are not the person they were before they broke. They are stronger, clearer, and more aligned. Their energy feels different, calmer, more self-assured, less penetrable. Their choices become intentional. Their relationships become more selective. Their vision for themselves becomes brighter and bolder than the version they carried before the pressure hit. People who doubted them are startled by the speed of their recovery, but this is how the INFJ survives, not by avoiding hardship, but by transforming through it. Every collapse becomes a rebirth. Every wound becomes wisdom. Every ending becomes a doorway into a stronger, more awakened form of themselves. Pressure doesn't destroy an INFJ, it uncovers them. It reveals the strength behind their silence, the precision behind their intuition, and the resilience woven into every part of who they are. These hidden traits don't appear in calm seasons. They rise when the INFJ is pushed to their limits, turning hardship into clarity and pain into transformation. When the world expects them to break, they rebuild. When others assume they're silent, they're evolving. And when the moment comes, they emerge stronger, sharper, and more aligned than ever before. If you want deeper insight into the psychology behind INFJs, emotional strength, and hidden personality dynamics, make sure you subscribe to Brainy Quiet Mind so you never miss what's coming next. Before you go, drop I Rise Again in the comments. Let me know you're one of the INFJs who transforms pressure into power.